You guys hear me?
Hello, sounds good.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm just gonna keep hitting mute. I don't have the mic, so when someone else talks. Dreams here. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start. Josh, you want to do the intro and everything? I don't think I can hear you, man. Can you hear me, Lucy?
I hear you, Watson. I didn't hear
Okay,
him.
and we can hear you too. I think Josh is gonna think. We'll go ahead and start. You go ahead and play with your audio, man. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hey guys.
Hey.
Okay, cool. How's it going? We're here for another software cooperative meetup. And so today we're going to be talking about well, what's today? First of all, I guess today is April the 6th, and today we're going to be talking about self-organized resource allocation. Watson's going to be leading us with this. He has a great paper he shared. I finished reading it just a little while ago. I'm excited to dive into it. And so, without any further waiting, let's hear it, Watson.
Thanks, guys. I know some of you were able to read it. I know I just posted it 3 hours ago, so sorry about that. Um, this was a topic that's been requested the last meetup by a systems guy. So, but he's not here now. So, it's a topic that keeps coming up. It's one that's very difficult for cooperatives to deal with because it's kind of or to talk about, and it's kind of problematic because you kind of think, okay, you got the smart people on the top, and they're the ones that know how to allocate things, and everyone else, you don't have the experience or what have you. So how can you self-organize and allocate a resource? For a professional services firm or consultancy or anything like that, you normally don't have to deal with resources as much. So you don't have equipment that someone has a group of 3 people over here, they have an idea, and you say, okay, their idea is better than this other group, therefore it goes to them. But how can those two organize and decide that? That's a difficult problem to solve. And so this whole paper is kind of based on trying to figure out how to rationally just reason about that type of problem. And so we start out from the beginning. The first paragraph talks about centralized planning, a republic, which is everyone gets together and says, okay, we're going to elect this representative, which is essentially centralized planning with the idea that you're electing the central planner. Then you've got the democratic side where it's everyone gets together and votes, and that one starts to get more problematic. But a self-organized side is kind of more of it's more distributed. It's going to be more rational. So, do you guys have any thoughts about that at this point? Have you guys ever tried to do anything where a group of you got together and said, okay, we have this resource. How do you normally figure out how that goes? And you could talk about from the software side if you want. If you're trying to
mean
build
like
something.
using like, hey, yeah, we should use this DPI or this framework using our technology stack, and then is a decision based on you, the team, or a representative on a team. Is that what you mean?
It could be within software, just people in general. So this is about consultancies getting together and doing things. Or I know Tristan has some ideas, possibly.
Possibly. I mean, not on this one, but I still have a comment for this particular part. Which is, I mean, we've run the essential experiment planning. We've run the experiment in Soviet Russia, right? And,
okay, I got something for you already.
But the idea is there's an assumption that there is essential someone that has the capacity and the capability to process the information required to make the decision. Right? And like so, it's a trade-off cost between the speed of the decision versus do you actually is any information that you actually possess at all relevant to the decision making, right? So that's the so any sort of belief in central planning has to meet that assumption criteria that central planner can. And typically in the domains that touch software and other things, very rarely is that criteria met. That there can exist a person that can contain all the information to make the decision by themselves. Well, the optimal decision. That would be my challenge. That there's a burden of proof if somebody chooses central planning as optimal. That the information, that all the information that needs to be there exists and can be processed effectively.
Yeah, that's always interesting when we reason about this. Software people like to point towards economics and say, look, over there, they didn't figure it out or they did figure it out. But software people, me included, we like to say economics people don't know what the hell they're talking about. So it's interesting that we'll do that.
Well, I think plenty of other people don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, right. So,
I'm just saying it's a very popular experiment.
Yeah.
I don't mean to push it off the economics domain. Right?
No. Oh, it's gonna go there. No. I think it's a valid point. So when people say central planning, they might think of some type of communism or something like that. But my thing is, if you're talking about Soviet Russia, whatever, that's actually very similar to the state capitalism. That's very similar to a big organization. Some of these multinationals, they organize centrally the equivalent of the amount of resources that a country does. They're so freaking huge. And it's interesting that when we want to argue against it, we argue against it using Soviet, but we don't argue against. I'm against it, but we don't. We kind of, because of our ideological stance, we don't want to look at an Apple or something like that. And so that's where I want to also have arguments or discussions about where people think it works, but it's still inefficient. I think it's still inefficient to those things. So, but I'm very worried about that because that's what people use against me about that. And I bring it to.
So, like, I think you've assumed my ideological stance correctly, but just like what I'm saying, experiment has been run is we've seen the consequences of where it can end up. So, so saying that there are big organizations that make it happen doesn't present proof that they haven't fallen apart yet.
Okay, look.
There's a difference between failing spectacularly and actually succeeding or being optimal.
Right? Yeah.
I'm sure if you went to work for Halliburton or whatever, any of these huge companies, you'd be amazed at the amount of waste.
Inefficiencies. I mean, that's personally why I don't work in big companies. I've always avoided it, just because it's insane, the amount of. That's why it's always bizarre to me when someone says, government, bad. I'm like, okay, have you done a contract with a Big Five consultancy or something? It's insane. It's the same thing to me. But yeah. So
But in certain
go ahead.
cases, redundancy and overlap and overhead is essential. So like NASA, when they're going to the they're doing any of their space missions, they have multiple teams working on the same problem. Even with programming the computer, they use all the solutions. If they don't match up, something's wrong.
Redundancy is needed.
I mean,
for resilience.
They know about the redundancy
And they like it.
for the redundancy.
And they like it. And for resilience and other types of things. But go ahead.
I think there's also a difference between central planning and a common language for communication and communication.
Go ahead. Not somebody.
So like, you know, like the NASA example, like, I mean, just because we all agree on, like, we're all going to speak in English so we can communicate effectively, that doesn't necessarily say that we essentially plan to all speak in English. So if there is like global commonalities, it doesn't require a central planner assumption. So like, and actually,
No, it's I think what you're, and how does that emerge? And that's the part that's, I think,
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's the interesting part. That's the thing that, you know, we get to it and we're able to plan that out. So I'll get to this next part unless somebody else had something about the central stuff. So within the paper, I'm trying to get to the point to where we're trying to reason rationally about this problem. And like I said, within a group, you've got to be able to, we can all operate as individuals, and that part is kind of simple, a little bit easier. If we were to say, I know that I can take this plant, this robotic arm or whatever, and I can, as an individual, do something and make some money. Whether it's the umbrella organization or we all vote, whatever, if I can say, I'm going to make you a 20% return on investment, you should give me that. It's a little bit easier to do that. But the harder thing is when you want to come together as groups. And that part is what it's going to require a little bit more, reasoning, right? So building coalitions. So if 3 of you get together and you say, okay, we're better at using this resource, you should give it to us, and then maybe there's some other 4 that would do better with it. And it's kind of, you get to this point to where you're trying to say, or trying to argue or reason about who's going to get the best return on investment, and is return on investment the thing that you want, right? So there's some assumptions there that you got to think about altogether. And normally what happens, it's just whoever argues the best, right? Whoever's the better negotiator, that kind of thing. So a basic assumption is you have work units. It could be an individual or groups, and they take inputs plus a resource, and they do some type of output. And that output is something valuable to the group, to the entity, company, or whatever. So that's a basic assumption, and that's what that next part. And how they do that is, it could be that 2 people, you 2, could be great at Erlang or great at Node, and you know how to take some other Raspberry Pis and do some development with that. And so the company should give you guys the Raspberry Pis. They ought to rationally. They may not. They may not say, oh, my buddy over here, who's my son or something, we're going to give them all the resources. I'm not going to give you.
What do you mean by the company should?
Right. So rationally,
because
if you give the bet, that's part is next. But talk about what's rational, what's the ought, and what's the is. Right. Right. But if we were to say rationally, if we had an assumption that the best return on investment is the one that ought to get the resource, then we would say it's a rational ought. Is that?
I guess my question was making distinction between the company gives it to you and it ends up with.
Right.
There's no entity doing the giving.
Right.
You have, if you're all coordinating together with each other, there's no entity doing the giving. The resource ends up with somebody at the conclusion.
So let's just talk about that. So that's the part that's the crux of this whole thing. How does something get to you? the entity doing the giving. There are cooperatives, since we're talking about cooperatives, that the entity does, they elect a representative, like say Mondragon. They're a 80,000 person cooperative, and they elect representatives, and they are the smart person, and then they give it to you. And it's like, oh, you can do, and they're doing a lot of manufacturing, so you can have this equipment. And so in that sense, they give it to you. But that's still a little bit of a more of a centrally planned, it's like a continuum. Super centrally planned representative democracy, everyone votes, which is slower, and then how does it emerge without even voting, right? So if you go all the way on the continuum, all the way to the other side, there's something like what I was talking about in some of the other papers, like a protocol that could be set up from the beginning that says, well, one of the assumptions that we have is whoever can prove that they can give the best return on investment, whoever will commit to the best return on investment, that type of thing. So in that way, the protocol is giving.
Okay.
It's kind of more like along those lines.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So anybody else? You guys are quiet on there.
Yep.
Okay, don't be scared.
So I'm thinking of like a timeshare example, right? So if you look at timeshare, so the reward or what you're getting is subjective to you, right? If you might have more fun. There's no return on investment, right? It's how much fun you have.
Fun would be
it's kind of objective.
Yeah.
So what happens when it's an objective return?
Well, and let me see if I understand your question. So if you were to say a timeshare, it's kind of like the slices would be the thing that's distributed. That would be the resource.
I'm saying the fun. So I guess a better example is, let's say there's this computer, and everybody's trying to get time on this computer.
Yes.
But the time on this computer is subjective in that this engineer could be learning. You might have a lower return financially, but the engineer might become more knowledgeable or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when it's subjective like that? Like, all right, are we just looking at finances? Or are we looking at the engineering that they may learn? Are you considering both at the same time?
Well, the first thing would be, let's say, use your example. So let's say timeshare on a computer. Let's just say that's a non-divisible, so hour blocks or something like that. Mm-hmm. So the hours are going to get assigned. In that situation, I think the operative word that you were like saying is the return on investment might be some type of learning return or something like that. But the fact that there is something good that happens or some type of return on investment. It could be that you value it based off of learning or whatever, but you still have to, that would still be rational. So you still would make a decision ahead of time to say it's based on return on investment. If we all said, oh, it's learning. So we know that somebody playing around with the supercomputer for an hour or 8-hour blocks in order to run all expensive bash scripts or whatever the hell they're going to do, they're learning off of that. And so we need that. So we allow that. Go ahead.
Doesn't it depend on what your economic system is? Because, like, to me, like, if you're talking about somebody's playing on a computer versus somebody's doing education or something, then you, like putting in those terms, like, these are different work units or different outputs here. It's like, you have to put those into the same system. So this is like, well, you're a parent and you have 2 children, and where one's trying to be a better engineer and the other one's playing. You might love them both, and it's just being fair. Yeah, I'm saying I'm putting it to the system where I'm going to get these 2 entities. Otherwise, I don't. Because like just abstractly, like that's too abstract to me. Like you're put in terms of an economic system before you can talk about, well, what are the inputs and outputs that would plug into a system. Otherwise, I'm just like floating at a loss. Like, what problem are we solving?
The problem mostly is you have resources. I'm doing more of like a consultancy, like creating more of like a business, like a software business or any type of business, but this software cooperative. So if we were all, how is it that we can, if we buy a bunch of computers or what have you, who gets to use them? or
Yeah,
whatever.
but
So
then,
that's more
but
of
then there's
us.
some assumption about work units and what outputs are. It's like you're a business, if you're trying to make money or produce something, then the outputs are going to be closer to production, like to value add or not.
You know, like if we all had computers and we're trying to distribute them between our different businesses, let's say, and I'm like, I just want to teach little kids. Everybody else might be like, what? We can make money with these computers. What are you doing? And that's totally different.
That's right, and that would be a good argument for those. For like, you wouldn't have one big entity that does all things.
Right.
So that would be an argument that, okay, what you guys want to do naturally would split off. Right.
Like the voting, they would vote you out. Or,
it just wouldn't make any sense. Right. That's why it's interesting to talk about, like, so for professional services firms, they can split into three. You've got ones that are, like, you can call them brains, where they do research and these types of things. You've got ones that you can call gray hair, where they've done it before, so the customer's okay with giving them that work because they see that they've done it before. And then you've got ones that are just procedural. They can do it very efficiently and all that. Companies like professional services that try to do all three, they tend to fail. Right? And so just within professional service, you can even just within law or something like that, they don't, those split off into different groups. So definitely when you're talking about education and doing just developing software and things like that, you would split.
I can still think of cases where you have that problem if you're talking about time, like say there's an 8-hour workday for a worker, and like one of your company's initiatives is giving back to the community, then you might very well have the problem of figuring out how many computers to give to your community organization or to people volunteer work.
So your return on investment in that case would be something based off of the community. Obviously, if it's a return on investment and you think that giving to the community is a good thing.
If that's one of your company's issues, then I assume that is.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there is a case where you do have different activities potentially.
I mean, then it's just a matter of priorities. So classically, we're assuming that the whole purpose of allocating resources is to generate profit. But if you have a different value than generating profit, like we believe in giving back to our community, well then you do things other than try and generate profit with your resources. Oh no, I lost audio.
We hear you.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, I can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
What I said there. If you're, self-organizing, group is going to come together to make a rational decision about resource allocation, to be able to transform your karma units into dollar units, or vice versa, or into some common units to make an actual decision. You don't know how many. Otherwise, you have no way to compare like an hour spent on good karma versus an hour spent on good karma.
Like everybody in that group will need to agree on that protocol of variables that define all these resources at a time.
And that's what led me to talk about when you were talking about the subjective output of the thing.
Yeah.
Well, you mix the.
Can't really have subjective output. Yeah, I don't know.
You can't be like, this is more fun.
You can't compare them.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what you could do is you could say, okay, I don't know how you reach this agreement. But you could say, we just think that we should give 20% of our time to the community.
Yeah,
so
you could split
you sort of like you basically split off into like this group Monday through Thursday versus this group on Friday.
Yeah.
It's like a totally different.
Right. Anyone else? We got 30 more minutes, so try to get to Tristan's. I think he's ready. So.
Yeah. I had a comment about. I'm gonna save it for the end. I think it's. I want to talk about the Shapely solution. So, I think it's relevant to what we just talked about, but that would be my answer. But let's wait till we get to it.
Okay, good. All right, so the next section is about is-ought. There's an is-ought dilemma within planning. You could say that the first thing that people think about when they think of resources and who it should go to, it's just whoever owns it. So if you own the thing, you get to decide where it goes to, and that's how it ought to be, right? But then how is it actually? When you talk about this, I put this in here because people flip back and forth on this just in the real world, not even talking about this subject. But within this subject, people really flip back and forth between the two. And so there are different systems that will help you reason about who it ought to go to. So we're talking about rationally and who it ought to. And there's systems that help you to try to help you to predict who it will go to, even not concerned ethically and all that stuff. So normally in real life, things will go to whoever negotiates the best charity considerations and other lobbying, these types of things, these types of different costs and things like that. So that section is one I'd suggest you read and maybe try to, I appreciate feedback on it. But does anyone have anything for that? Because I'm going to go into the next section, which is pretty important.
It just seems really, really big and broad because doesn't this kind of come down to like the whole concept of ownership of any kind of property and somebody's right to do what they want with their own thing?
Yeah, and it may not be the case that it's your right. I mean, there's boundaries. We don't believe in feudalism anymore, right? And, when there's 1,000 years ago, whenever it was, 500 years ago, and it was only like, a couple hundred or 1,000 people owning everything in Britain. And they said, well, it's not efficient and we just don't like it. Plus, it doesn't work because people just storm the castles, whatever. So at some point, we kind of say, because of the wealth of the whole nation suffers when too few people own, there's a limit to that principle of whoever owns the resource, the land in that example, get to tell.
So I feel like this topic can really get I feel like we could immediately jump into politics and be like libertarianism would be a classic example of the most extreme form of if you have it, you ought to be able to allocate it as you want, and they don't want the government to allocate their resources. They want to allocate all their own resources as they see fit. And on the other hand, you have people saying that, well, you're going to do it much less efficiently, and if we all pull our stuff together, at least a part of it, we can do some things very efficiently and benefit all of us, including those most in need in our society, and it's going to benefit you regardless, right? So that sounds like a direct antecedent to this discussion.
Yeah, and if you go to the extreme of any of these views, like an extreme libertarian, would probably say something like what you just said. So, yep, that's the problem. And here comes Tim. So, anyone else on the is-ought thing? Because we're gonna move on into play markets, which I think is important. And then we can. All right. So, playing market is something that we refer to in just about every single paper. It's the idea that if you try to so a market is the opposite, the extreme opposite of central planning. It's just, if someone wants to buy your stuff, then they buy it. There is no, but playing market is a situation where you try to have, let's say, a corporate entity or what have you, and you say, okay, we're going to allow you to do what you want. We're going to give you autonomy, all these things that are nice that people talk about nowadays. But you know what? And you create things. It may be that you create something that's valuable to you, valuable to us, or what have you. But we're going to swoop in and take it later. That's essentially a play market. So if we swoop in and take your resource, then a couple of iterations you kind of get wise and you kind of figure out, I'm going to do only short-term strategies. I'm not going to do long-term things because I'm not going to have the resource for very long because the people up top decide to reallocate things from me and all that. That's a play market. And that's, you could call it selective intervention, and we reference it in some of these other papers. So that is a barrier to behavior that people have found already because of experiments that will keep you from allocating resources in a like a central planning way or what have you. If people know and they figure out that the stuff is going to be taken away from them, they're going to do all manner of things from short-term strategies to empire building to where it's hard for you to take it away from them, and all kinds of things.
So you said that's anti-central planning? The play market is
The play market is central.
Okay, yeah, I thought you said anti.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah.
more sense.
Markets are anti. The playing market is kind of people trying to have their cake and eat it too. So this is controversial, but all of the companies trying to say, okay, we're going to give you autonomy and all this stuff, and we like you to give your ideas to us and all that. That's just playing market. So
because they're going to steal your idea and make it themselves.
Take the idea, all manner of tricks, all manner of things. Even with the extreme of, we're going to compensate you for your idea. It's your idea. You get compensated, everything. But just on the resource side, that's what this paper is talking about. Just on the resource, you have this equipment, we're going to take it from you and give it to someone else. That is playing market. It should be just the market decides where the market should have. The more the market decides where the resource goes, the better.
I mean, are you saying that that's an objective truth?
An objective truth, it's the results of experiment.
So the way that that's software development, it happens all the time. People don't notice it. Teams get ripped apart, business requirements are shuffled around. Like a common thing, some companies, most of us have hierarchical structure. There's management in between people doing the work, engineers and stuff, and the sales and whatnot. And so sales can commit, engineering to do work, and then, some product that needs something done, they don't have the expert's on another team, so a lot of companies will rip the expert on the other team in order to boast the skill set of another team who has a product that needs to be updated. Mm-hmm. Or they're like, okay, experts, you did the prototype version or the one-to-one version, cool, let's put this in maintenance mode. Swap you guys off to the new cool thing and give some other group the old inherited thing to take care of. Those are all.
So that is all right on, spot on, but the only thing I just add on, let's just say that product in the end that's getting made is consumed and there's money, right?
Yeah.
If it is the case that there's team A and they had their expert ripped off and put to team B, the market, if team B is the one that producing, things are better,
not necessarily.
Then that's the problem.
No,
Yes.
It's not because there's a key thing.
The central point.
Sales is the group that's at the boundaries getting the information about what's valuable to the market. Yeah. The workers are doing what they're told. There's a delay there.
And the sales might be wrong.
It's not like the team with skills and expertise to do the work is the one interfacing with the customer. It's like, the customer has a new need. We can meet this by building this thing. That would be the direct, like the team that can do the work and build the thing needs the customer need, okay, we build the thing, meet the customer value. Yeah. Versus what actually happens in a lot of companies is somebody somewhere else.
Politics, bureaucracy, all kinds of people's careers.
They assume that this is a value opportunity, and they move people in anticipation and all sorts of things. Get into lots of patterns, moving people around out to the market or customer need directly driving changes in the organizational structure.
Yep, that's fine.
So like it's chaotic from a perspective of a
Mm-hmm.
person working in the team. So like you aren't changing because of market needs. You're changing because of
Mm-hmm.
the organization structure around you is saying things changed.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Anyone else? We can get time.
I was going to say, are you? So let's say this company, let's say this is a startup company. Are you saying that because a big company might buy them up before the market validates them, they're going to be less apprehensive to build their company?
I don't know about that.
Because the bigger company might buy them up and steal all the resources that they're trying to build for this. Let's say they have a 5-year plan. The market hasn't seen them yet. The bigger company is just going to steal their idea.
To me, the bigger company is part of the market. So if they did something that makes the big company want to pay for them, then oh well, that's good for them or bad for the
No, I don't mean buy the company. I mean steal their idea of the company.
Why? So I mean,
So
if you took
let's say you're making like this naive app. You're just like making it, and the company is just like, oh, I like that, and you can also make it open source. I'm going to take that idea, build it, and push it to customers faster and stronger than you. And you're saying that demotivates the smaller company.
Hell yeah, yeah, but that's
But that's
for sure.
Not necessarily play market,
But
right?
that's not
That's
necessarily
just
play
the actual market.
Yeah.
Like you working and anticipating how your market,
Yeah.
other entities in the market behave.
Yeah. But the effect is there. Like it's going to demotivate that small company for sure. Yeah. I mean, if they see that and you see, well, if you want to do the software patent thing, you can, or whatever. Yeah. We don't like that here.
Everyone participating in the world.
Yeah.
Like, when you take the risk of building a startup.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So next, we hit on this already a little bit. So as far as incentives, there are individual incentives and there are coalition incentives. Just whenever you got your maybe if you need a place to inject software questions or whatever, or the next session. But the part that's a pretty hard problem to reason about is when it's coalition building. There's a couple things, and I'll just let you look at the paper for whatever reason. But there's a concept of being Pareto optimal. So you've got a situation where if you are going to make a decision and you enter into a relationship and you're going to produce some type of product, whatever, it's got to be in such a situation that there aren't other decisions that you can make that would be better. And you got to consider that for the whole group. So this is why the is talked about this before. If there's any situation, we're talking about Pareto optimal, there's any situation where, let's say there's 5 people, right? If there's one decision versus another decision. If decision A is they buy a product and each person has a bunch of decisions. If decision B, even one person has a payout that's better, that everyone else stays the same, then decision A is inefficient. It might seem obvious when you're reasoning about a thing, or it may not seem obvious. I don't know. These are things that sometimes I don't understand. People get it or they don't get it. It's economics. That's maximizing. The very concept is each person has a payout, right? So if we all decide to go and build a piece of software, using Raspberry Pis or whatever, right? And we all get a payout of $50,000. If there's another one where we use Arduinos, and then one person gets $55,000 a year, everyone else still gets $50,000. The Arduino one is the other one is not free. So that's that concept alone. That's the first one. Then it's now about
able to work on other things? Or?
No, it's just strict rationality.
Means globally optimizing payout.
Yep. Yeah.
Arounds considered.
Arounds considered.
This is one decision in a vacuum, right? We've got histories.
You can do repeated games. You can do a bunch of things. And this one, it's just this one.
So this is the B decision had the higher payout. This is the B decision had the higher payout?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
okay, that's just, I didn't track that. Okay, so there's two decisions, B decision had a higher payout.
Yes. It's a higher payout, and maybe sometimes the confusing thing is the higher payout for one person. But everyone else is the same.
That's why, but the
They
group.
made a different decision, right? The people who had the other pay made the other decision.
It's everyone's decision all at once. Right? So
Yeah, but like there are five individuals and four of them chose A, one chose B.
okay, so it is getting looked in. So it's all of you decide to do Raspberry Pi, or all of you decide to do Arduino. Raspberry Pi, everyone's 55,000. Arduino, everyone's 50,000. I'm sorry, 55,000. No, that's an example. Arduino, everyone's 55,000 except for one. One of them 60,000.
We all have to collectively make the same decision.
And then basically give that resource to the team. Basically give that resource to the team because they have a higher output for the money. Like they'll get more money, so might as well give everything to that. That one.
This actually isn't right. The thing he said isn't, because you can make as a team, all of you make 100,000, but if one person makes a little less, then at that point, Pareto optimal, it no longer applies because that one person's like, screw it, I'm doing my thing, right? So that's the concept. It's like everybody, no matter what, it's at least the same or better for everyone. That's when it's Pareto optimal. That's when you're leaving stuff on the table. And people are within economics and all that, they're very concerned with that.
Wait, I'm still confused. So you said there are five people, right?
Yeah.
And there are two decisions, two possible choices.
That's where the confusion is. But
So
each person makes a decision.
The definition of Pareto optimal, it says it's a state of payoffs that if you redistribute anything, you're going to harm somebody.
Yeah, do that if you want. But the thing is, each person's making
any distribution or change beneficial to one individual is detrimental to one or more others. So Pareto optimal is this state that if you make any change, somebody will lose. It's not.
So it's like regardless of the decision that made. So you have five people who make decisions. Somebody has a higher payout than everybody else, and then it's that.
It's okay, I guess.
In this one case, should we write something on the board of like five blocks?
Is it just a fixed payout across all the people, or is it just different decisions result in different payout?
The part that's confusing is each person is making a decision. That's the part that I'm kind of, you're almost there, but each person's making a decision. Like we all individually say Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I get that.
Okay, yeah, I get that each person made their decision individually. Like this is the individual
Right,
behavior, not coalition.
And so let's use a new word. When everybody's made their decision, that's called an imputation. That's a payout.
Right. So
Each decision altogether.
All five people come to the room and they have red or blue pill. They all should be choosing the one of higher value because
For themselves, it'll be rational. Yeah, for sure.
But they don't know what the payout is ahead of time. They're just making decisions, right?
Not necessarily that part, but when we're talking about Pareto optimality, they do. In our vacuum, we're saying that they do. It's just.
Then how did one end up with making the decision that paid more?
Paid more.
Well, had a higher payout.
Mm-hmm. So let's say decision sets, right? 2 decision sets. So 5 people make a set of decisions. It just so happens that it's all Raspberry Pi. It could be a bunch of different. If we mix and matched, you can imagine that too. And the payout, what for each person was 50,000, but for that one, decision sets. And then the other one, there's a decision set. That's an imputation. Everyone's payout, whatever it is, their decision that they make, whatever it is, it's 50,000 for a bunch of them. Just one of them, in this one example, one of them's better.
Okay.
The first imputation should not be taken. That's not Pareto optimal. The second one's Pareto.
Okay, so you're saying if you line up all your combinations of choices that you make, you're saying, for one thing, like summing up all the payouts across everyone is going to.
That's the value of the set.
That's another concept, but that's the tricky thing.
So
it's not that.
What is pay? Can somebody define payout for me? What is payout?
Just a payment. You can just use money if you want.
Is it for the person who made the decision?
Let's just say there's individual payouts, and then there's the sum of the value. We'll talk about that later if we get to it. But let's just say individual payouts. Let's just say individual payouts. Forget about the sum. Forget about the sum.
Who's benefiting? Like payout. So we're talking money for some reason. So
Sure.
if somebody's making money, is the person who made the decision?
Yes.
Each person individual payout. So.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's them making.
And I guess Pareto optimality is there are choices that you presented, E and B. It doesn't even matter which individual decision were made. A, everyone gets $50 payout, and B.
Not everyone. The people who made the decision.
That's an arbitrary thing, but yeah, it could be.
There's 5 people. There's 5 people, 5 decisions, 5 There's a 1-1. So in A, everyone gets 50. Yeah, everyone gets payout. B, 35, gets $5 payout.
Oh, so A is all 5 people's decision.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought A was a choice that they made.
No, it's a whole situation.
Okay, that's what I didn't get. So A is all 5 people's decisions. Oh, okay. So A is like a set
So
of
B
decisions.
is Pareto optimal. A is not.
Okay.
I just didn't.
It's cool because it's great to talk about this thing because sometimes I have no freaking clue if this stuff, like when I'm talking with someone about it, I think they understand it. And I've been looking at it for so long, I can't tell that if it's complicated.
And so the reason why it's B is because if you were to choose A, you're hurting
This
the fact
is a
that
situation
I
where
could have
there's
made
some
more money.
decisions
Yeah.
where only one person can get the higher payout, so you reallocate.
Yeah.
How I like to think about it is Pareto optimal or equilibrium or whatever. It is the best possible situation for everyone. If Watson went from bottom up, from like a worst to a best possible, but I'll say it's the best. If anyone makes any other different move, then everyone is not at their best situation. So at that last point where everyone is at their best, that is Pareto optimal or equilibrium, however you want to say it.
Everybody average, or do you want one person to be excellent? You go.
No, it's just everyone's at their best. It doesn't matter if everyone's the same or not. I didn't say that.
Because I like economics, it is the best.
Right. It's the local best version. You're globally saying Pareto optimal is one in across the whole population. Everyone achieves the overall best.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying.
Relative thing. That's getting ahead of it, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's getting ahead of things, but yes. Right? There's situations where one person does worse. And that's when we go forward, the next thing we're going to talk about. Go ahead.
Keep it really simple.
Yeah.
Two, and then there's like 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
And
Somebody did worse. That one's off the table.
yeah, so 2, 2, 2 is the only.
That's the best one, and that's
Well,
that's a cleric.
Right, there's one
Yeah,
where
the
1
1,
was a
2,
3.
3.
There's a 1, 2, 3.
So 2, 2, 2 is
So 2, 2,
worse.
2 is worse for 1, 2, 3 for a person.
Yeah.
So in that situation,
There isn't
Yeah.
one. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you just
you're
take
right.
it-
You're right.
just like- that would be a better example.
There you go.
One I didn't know was a decision.
There you go.
That's the case where there's no trade-off.
Great. We'll just put that in the paper. There is no better. So,
But if this only sets for 1, 1, 1 and 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1 would be better because it's not worse for the other person, even though it's 1 in both cases.
yeah.
So is the point that if you can tell if there is a Pareto optimum,
Yep.
then we should
Take it.
choose that one?
Yep.
And you're
And
also defining inefficiency as not being at Pareto optimal.
if it exists. That's right.
So they said there could be multiple, but if you have like if you have 111 and then 221 and then 212, 221 and 212, if you have that case, then
I guess they're equally optimal.
well, are they? Because it's worse
No,
for
it's
somebody.
when you get it, it's like if somebody can make it, if someone can defect, if someone wants to defect, then it's not Pareto. Like someone sees, oh, for me personally, if I did this decision over here, then I'm going to do that.
Wait, actually, yeah.
So that's not. So the only case you have multiple Pareto optimals is there are multiple decisions where they're both 222. If your cases are 111 and 221, then the only way 221 can be Pareto optimal is if another Pareto optimal was also 221.
Unless you want to define it as the
Payouts.
number of people who are at each payout, which is the order. So her example was.
Yeah, I'm more of a fan of that route, going by the units. I mean, if the units stay the same, then production should still be the same once you add them up. So I'm going on that route. I like that. What?
Care about or being
That's right.
So it's only 221 and it is order. So 221 and they'll have all of them. 221, like in multiple 221 cases, otherwise there's not multiple. Like there's even one.
We did it.
Yeah, so I'm just going off of the WISE Wikipedia, but basically it sounds like if making somebody better makes somebody else worse, then it's not optimal.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yes.
By the way, the reason why the initial example was confusing to me because I thought that it was in the set B, 4 you were making 0, and then one guy was getting 55. But that's not what we're really saying. Then that's
50
why
and 55, but yeah.
Well, I meant not in the 55 case. The other 4 people were at 0.
Yeah,
Never mind.
I thought I said 50,000 or 50,000.
You said 50,000 in the first group, and then in the second example, you said one person makes for 55. But I rationalized it in my head that it means that the other 4 people were at 0. So that's why I was confused.
All right.
Oh, but the resource isn't necessarily it could be non-divisible or divisible or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
There's different kinds of resources.
Okay, so when you talk about the payout, it's not like there's it adds up to some base number. Or something like that.
So you,
There's try to say that something can be rational, even possible. When people talk about this stuff, they'll give up immediately. They're like, whatever, go back to the central planner. We're done. That's the problem.
I guess I can see how that is a rational way to look at it if it applies to the situation because emotionally, if I'm going to get the same thing and she's going to do better, I may not want to vote for that plan.
Yeah, that's just being a hater, but yeah.
I see that as a relative loss, even though rationally.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, people
so
number and be like, no, I don't like that you're making more.
Yeah, see, that's what I keep coming back to as being a problem. Is we're kind of saying at a fine-grained level, we're always going to be attempting to make rational decisions about everything, and that's a problem because humans. So to me, I keep thinking, there's got to be some balance to where, at a coarse-grained level, we have things like you were talking about protocols and maybe some kind of hierarchy or something that's mutable, and that we can put a lot of cognitive energy into figuring out what that is at a slower pace and then deciding what these protocols are or things like that. And then at the fine-grained level, it's almost like not a robotic process, but we're saying, hey, look, we said what the rules are, we're just going with that. There's not all this, let's think emotionally about this. We just say, hey, if you have a problem with it, at the next time that we revise our protocols, you can bring it up. But so you get a coarse-grained, or fine-grained efficiency, but you have a coarse-grained corrective, iterative kind of thing to kind of try to prevent the humanness from always being a problem.
One way to deal with what John brought up is the entering into the coalition because that sounds like
You can meet a hater in coalition too. I don't like those three over there.
Especially
I mean the coalition in this case is where you all agree to make the same decision, right?
So coalition makes it even more complicated, but it's you could as a coalition.
They have the same pay. They have the example. They have the value. That's the payout, right?
Mm-hmm. It could when you form. So coalition is the next step. For the coalition, you can get together and make less. The coalition has its own value, so those have to.
Yeah, but in the coalition case, John's not worried about me making more than him, right? Because we teamed up, they have the same payout collectively. Well, I mean, if that's a concern, we'd all say whatever the payout is, we split it equally.
There you go, and that's
so
not necessarily
every
the
time
case.
we make the decision, then there's a whatever the optimal word is for the coalition,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's.
But then you would be on the coalition.
Well, if I knew my individual payout was greater, but if there's a situation where the coalition's payout split is always higher than the payout.
Right.
So that's a game strategy at that point, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what all of this is.
Right. So the next we're talking about there's 3 solutions just to go ahead for anybody that wants to. I don't know how much. It's 8 o'clock now, but there's 3 solutions. Game. Popular, the guy that invented game theory, von Neumann, he's got his, and that one's going to be very broad, and it's going to be more along the lines of what we're talking about. And what the key concept is there can be many solutions, many equilibriums, and that simply means that you couldn't, because of what everyone else is doing, you can't do better. And that's part of the Pareto optimal, Nash equilibrium, all this stuff. But there's a way to calculate that, is all it is. If you can say, I think that we're going to get 50,000 from this if we do this, then you can calculate if there is a solution. If there's no solution, then just negotiate and do whatever the freak you want.
Does the solution require 100% knowledge of the payout?
100% knowledge you wouldn't have, right? But at least if you were to just say, I think that this is, and you present it, and then if everyone's like, yeah, okay, then at that point, you can at least reason about it, right? You can at least read. That's all this is about, is being to at least trying to make protocols, like Ian was saying, trying to make some general rules that say we can reason about the coalitions, individual action, and all that. And this would be the best person to give the resource to.
The issue I have with that is because you're calling for using a heuristic formed and with an assumption of perfect knowledge.
That part, no. I'm not agreeing to that. That's you saying that.
So if anybody's statement about the payoff in the future is imperfect knowledge. And
you said imperfect.
Making a statement about the future is imperfect knowledge.
Imperfect. Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so, but the solutions, I'm assuming, I have to read it, correct me if my assumption is wrong, is based on assuming that you can do a global evaluation and
knowing the solutions.
Like knowing the payoff. The payoff is not a mystery when these solutions were developed. The payoff was known in this game.
Yeah, it's not a mystery.
We are following heuristics or solutions based on a world where knowledge of the payoff is complete.
No, see, you added that part in. You said imperfect before, but now you're saying complete. I'm saying it doesn't have to be. It can be an assumption.
So shapely solution will work in a world of imperfect knowledge.
It's just all yours. If we're making assumptions on what the payouts are going to be, and we get together and say, I think this, then yeah, sure.
I mean, you're substituting your assumption for
the group's
payoff.
assumption, but yeah.
Okay. What I'm saying is the solution is developed where the assumption holds. May not work in a world where assumptions don't hold.
Where assumptions don't hold.
Right.
It's like I couldn't beat Usain Bolt in a race.
If you say the payoff is unknowable. Then
It's a payoff. When you say unknowable, like if you have no idea, like I'm going to go to work next year, I might not make any money. Okay. No, I'm going to make some money next year. Pretty good. That's a pretty strong assumption. But you're saying it's unknowable.
If you're alive.
Huh?
If you're alive.
Well, see, and I'm saying all you need is what I just said. That's all you need, that level of knowledge. You don't need to say, oh, I'm definitely going to be alive, the sun is going to rise, all that. You don't have to have that for this.
So you don't need to.
This is all about making your stuff consistent. It's only about making it consistent. So if you go back and you're doing all this stuff, this just says, well, people in real life, they'll have all these assumptions and all that stuff, and they'll be inconsistent. At least make all your assumptions and all this crazy talk about the future, at least make it. That's
There is
all
a
it
room
is.
to gain the system by adjusting my assumption. Like my assumption, my stated assumption. What I'm saying is that the solution is built where there is no translation between the two, right? Like, whereas I now have room to insert game theory into the assumption state, and I can actually state false
That's right.
assumptions to get further outcomes that like I'm actually don't
You
care.
could do that. And then people that ignore the market and ignore somebody saying, I'm going to make 50,000, and then they fail. And then I'm going to make 50,000, and they fail. And everyone says, yeah, I'm going to believe them again. Then I'm going to make it. I'm going to believe them again. Then you get what you deserve. So it's iterative, and it's refinements and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean it's basically kind of like science, where you're doing induction and you could be wrong, but you can look at your prior probabilities and do Bayes analysis, whatever fun stuff you want to do, and more often than not, you're going to do better than if you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants. And you can revise your priors after you find out, wait, no, that one didn't work, but then the next time you're going to hopefully improve your outcome. So if it is the case that our assumptions are true, then it'll be optimal. And we may be wrong, but hopefully we won't be that wrong. And we'll be less wrong than if we're just not using any of that information and just kind of, going on a whim.
The alternatives to fly by the seat of the pants, what I'm trying to get a hold of is the assumptions that were present when that feed the solutions emerging from the method, from whatever method.
Yeah.
Like they held assumptions. So.
Yeah.
But I need to read more because it seems like I haven't read it.
Yeah. NM. It's just.
Is it supposed to be in? Are there supposed to be two different variables?
That's just the first letters of their names, like Von Neumann and Morgenstern or something.
In education,
So then there's that solution. There's the AM, which is Almond-Mashler one, which that one's interesting because it tells you, it tries to make predictions on what the payouts will be if people get together. And that one's only about coalitions, and that one kind of addresses it tries to say, well, you can't tell which coalition is going to emerge. And I'll let you look at the examples and you'll have to look at the Wikipedia links, because it would have definitely made people not read the paper if I would have put the stuff in there. But it's interesting because it doesn't take into account, it addresses some of the things where people are saying, well, what if I'm just a hater or whatever? It takes that into account. And then the last one, the Shapley solutions, is talking about how much value does this game even have to me as an individual? Do I want to play or not? And that one's useful as well. So there's 3 different situations to help you reason, and then those things can be used what I believe, you can use those to try to make these protocols. Like generally speaking, you're going to make a company and say, here's how we're going to reason about where the resources go. If you're going to do self-organized resource allocation. You can do like representatives, you can do everyone vote and do it, but if you're going to try to have some kind of rationality and put that into some type of constitution for your company, something like that, there are ways to do it. It's not a 100% solved problem, but people have reason about it. At least you can try to have a stance where you're trying to be rational about the thing. And I believe that that's going to be more rational than well, even if it's not more rational, just as rational as a central planner. Someone saying you, because that can be bureaucracy, that can be all kinds of other things. So there you go. But
what are the largest examples of self-organizing entities? I mean, eventually people just kind of just like.
Well, self-organizing is all over the place. Resource allocation is the hard thing. Self-organizing where somebody says, here, I'm going to give this to you. That's biology. You can find some things like bats giving blood to another bat because they need it or whatever, but it just depends on how you're going to define it. If you want to look in biology, I prefer not to because there's a lot of stuff there, but that's not humans. And humans will look at something and game it, like how Tristan was saying.
Well, I guess I am asking, like, when do humans do it, and do any large entity groupings of humans do it? Because we're just mostly
markets.
used to a central.
Markets are
Sure.
the number one self-organizing thing.
Sure.
And so trying to take a step back from that and something that's a little bit more under one umbrella might be something you're interested in. But markets are, you lose, you starve to death. Oh well, give the resource to the other one.
I think the hard thing with software and with just figuring out work units and ownership. So reasoning about is versus off is hard because ownership is hard in software development. As our resources.
This is hard. This is a hard
So,
subject.
Like, how do you even set and base the things that you need to tweak? Variables that you need to tweak.
Yeah.
It's
hard.
like the initial phase where everyone states their belief about the value of each decision, converging on.
Do you need to do?
It seems like these at least the first model, it seems like it requires everyone to agree. The model like this model is assuming that that everyone knows what the paths are going to be. You're saying there's a proxy for that, which is everyone agrees on a belief about the path of the system. It may or may not be true, but at least if everyone agrees, then they can say, okay, well, this is what we should do.
So I think
coming to that agreement is going to be
It still is, it's still going to be like when if you guys do Agile, somebody gets together and says, I think this is going to be 20 hours or this many points, and no, I think it's 1 point, or I think it's, whatever you're going to do, then you kind of take an average. You have a way, and you just say, well, we're going to do this.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking of like even more direct terms. Like, what if you have like one scenario is money's coming into the company and the company is distributed to people in the company. But what about the case where you're like, money is like teams are building services, they're bringing money in, and that's going pretty much directly back to the teams that build the services. So in that case, there's no agreement around how much money each service is going to make. Like the market value for different services will be different.
Yeah. And I kind of err on the side with the is-ought is we're talking about resources, right? So if a service sub-unit, work unit, they created a resource, they created it, it's money. They're bringing it in. They should be allowed to allocate that resource.
Yeah, so
that's not the umbrella.
Yeah, so
but that's
where does this fall? That's the model.
It's only the umbrella. So let's say there's a bunch of resources. Your example, bunch of service sub work units or what have you. They all can create resources, money, or whatever, tools, whatever, right? And say that they're indivisible resources that have to be, reassigned, not divisible, whatever, right? Not open source. That's fine. They let them do whatever. But some of the things that they use from the umbrella, the brand, whatever, all these things, the cost centers, right? Everything that people handle, lawyers or whatever. If you make in your example, that's value. And they're not operating in a vacuum.
So the problem would be with the building the water departments that
Yeah.
share these are
Yeah.
The resource to be allocated could be cost. That
could
part.
be the operating
Mhm.
Like
costs of the
who bears the
organization.
cost for this, which is like the government.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
So that's
where-
but see that's and it's funny because we're talking about this, but remember that's people already do that, right? There's already like law firms, right? They get together and they have a brand and they have to pay for the building and all that, so they do it. So just because there's a way to model it or whatever. So
I wonder if you may want to model the situation with the service. Like, so basically, you're in a group of 5 people, right? So, and there's like 2 people over here. These folks either want to go off and make the service in A or B way.
Mhm.
The rest of the people, they don't have a decision, right?
about those other
About the
guys,
service.
About
yeah, no, they starve to death or whatever. They don't, whatever. Let them starve. They don't make enough money to survive or whatever. Now, if they are getting paid from those other people, then they do have a say.
Well, here's the thing. That there's 2 phases. It's one where everyone comes to a convergence, whether it's an agreement or an average or whatever, about the value of this decision that these 2 people are going to make. And then the second phase is where you actually, run the experiment and see what the outcome is, right? So you want to arrive at an optimal solution. But the thing is that these 2 people may disagree with these 3 people about the value of choice A or choice B for their service. They're either going to make their service in Node or they're going to use Django.
Yeah.
Right. So these folks aren't affected. In your market example, they don't really even get a say in it, right?
Yeah.
But
They get a say with this. So that's another talk. But the resource
We were
allocating.
talking about the teams, as far as the servers are concerned, it's often simple because there's a part of the resource that they need money, funding to start and build their service.
Yeah.
But then they get to keep all the money that their service makes. So there's no there's no the other people aren't relevant there, but then there's still some shared thing like, oh wait, the building that they're going to cost money.
Right.
They're
So that's normal
spending
accounting.
IT and whatnot. But self-organized, you still have to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a shared
Yeah.
cost, there's some shared.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
And then we're thinking, but aren't there? Yeah, so you could deal with that completely separately from being brought in by the services. That might not be part of the equation of how you share the bill. Even if one team's service is making a crazy different amount of money than the rest of the org, it's like power. So that's an issue.
So it'd be a blanketed cost across the whole team just to fight it up.
Well, yeah, they could
And
make that
it's
choice.
the opposite of being paid for a service.
The Shapley is the one that solved that, by the way. If it's not,
The shape
if
of
some-
the cost splitting one.
if it's one where some group uses more of it, the example is runways, so small airlines.
Okay.
Like, you use a hot water more often.
Yes, right. The software, do you have something? Because you were ready.
Well, I didn't read your paper. I was ready for the subject line. The paper took a different direction.
Oh, okay.
No, what I was talking about was what Lee mentioned, right? Like, if you set up a team where the services gets a little more money, they can actually start subsidizing other teams and they start getting power.
Yes.
And so in the market, anytime, and this goes back to what I mentioned with the Bitcoin example, is in the market anytime somebody can get nonlinear returns for their costs. So if it costs me $1, but I can make $1 I can make $2, for $2 I can make $4. If I have that type of returns, then that always leads to centralization of the power.
There's some sense where that's almost trivially true.
Become dysfunctional.
There's some sense where that's trivially true. Like feudalism. Like we went and we killed everybody. We took over the land. We won. There's nothing you can do. There's no way to get around that we dominate everybody. So yes, there's some way, and where it's going to be, there has to be some redistribution after in some situation. There are, winner take all situations, is what it's called. So yeah, monopolies and stuff like that. There's no way. This thing does not say that it stops monopolies. Monopoly it can be a situation where it's Pareto optimal, like where no one can make a decision that they would turn out better. But that's one equilibrium. There are equilibriums where it's more distributed. There's many solutions. That's why it's very important I feel, to understand this stuff, because there's many solutions where stuff is more distributed and equalized or whatever, and it's still fair. So that's what people don't get. A lot of times they think there's one solution, one optimal solution. There's many optimal solutions, many Pareto optimal solutions. So a lot of times the first movers are the ones that just capture everything, and then people have to storm the castles and all this stuff and play again. So there you go. So is everybody happy?
I'm interested. I think the solution.
What's next?
Resource of the Bitcoin thing was not resource, right?
No, it was about power. So
Yeah.
That's quite.
Do you want to talk about what we usually try to make a decision on what we're going to talk about next? We want to talk about Bitcoin or some type of thing like that next? No? We don't want to try? I'm not saying that you have to do it. I can make something and you can tear it apart if you want. I'm not a master of it or whatever, but you want to come in and argue with me?
I would like to discuss the 3 solutions next time.
Okay.
Explain what those are. We didn't get to it.
Yeah, it's pretty complicated.
We can burn an hour discussing the 3 solutions.
We probably can burn days talking about one solution. Okay. People got the Nobel Prize for the solution, so they're complicated. But they can be put into an algorithm, and you don't have to know all of it except for the highest levels to know that it's fair, like what we were talking about. There's maybe 4 or 5 concepts that say this is fair. And if you're a programmer, you can go and look at the code, you'll understand it. But when you look at the math, maybe you're not a math person.
That's okay. I'm looking to extract heuristics for behavior.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if you want to talk about the stuff offline too, we can do it. But does anybody have any suggestions for next?
What are the last 3 topics or 2 topics?
It's all been self-organized stuff, so structures. We've been leaning more on the business side, like how humans behave, right? And that's kind of what I'm preoccupied with within software. But the Bitcoin stuff has been something that's like decentralized stuff.
Decision making. Right?
Decentralized.
I don't know how different it's going to be from resource allocation. I mean, you've done the deep dive on resource allocation. Is there going to be?
I talked about decentralized, and I got a paper for decentralized. We could talk about it. I didn't finish it, but it's almost done. But decentralized versus distributed, there's some on the philosophical side is very interesting.
We can talk about that too.
Yeah, but and how it works. But as far as control, manipulating people, and all that, that's the stuff that I'm
interested in.
Yeah.
So we're interested in the power thing, like how do you not get power or how can you
specifically the problem
right.
I'm interested in is if you drive for decentralized, how doesn't that become, how doesn't the power then come and destroy the decentralized manner, right? Mm-hmm. The idea and the reason not to the assumption not to centralize power is because you're now no longer taking advantage of, if we talk about people have finite capacity for processing information, etc. When as soon as power becomes centralized, we start getting bottlenecks about information processing of your human system.
Right.
And so if there's a way to maintain decision-making decentralized so that your system can absorb the most information from the world and decide the most decentralized, the assumption is, and I might be wrong, and let's talk about it, is that the more decentralized decision-making can optimize for learning from the outside world. That's what I'm interested in, and how to prevent that.
So there's a lot of stuff inside that where it's psychology. So if you don't want to talk about that psychology part,
Well,
then
who wants to talk about that too?
okay. Well, then I mean, because then it becomes, but the whole part where it's like, let's make something that doesn't talk about psychology of humans, then it's like, yeah, you can make something in the vacuum.
No,
Maybe.
we want humans. We want
Then yeah, there's plenty. That's a subject that is very, and I talked about it in the Harvestocracy, some parts where we talk about a little bit about the decentralized and the distributed, the difference between decentralized and distributed, and things like that. So I'm all for talking about that.
That's good.
I'm all for that,
I'm up
for
for
sure.
that.
Okay, what do you guys think?
I was wondering if you guys discussed the overhead that we talked about with bureaucracy. In terms of, like, let's say there's one problem and one engineer can solve it in a month. 3 engineers can solve it in a week. But you throw 10 engineers on it, and then now you're going back up to like 3 weeks.
That's if all those could be equilibriums. All of those could be the amount of it matters depending on is it more valuable for it to be solved in a week. So all those could be, because the amount of effort spent and all that stuff, it could be fine. If you put a value.
I was saying not necessarily the value you might get out of it, more so why is there a difference when you add more engineers to certain situations?
That's like mythical man months stuff.
Right.
Maybe
That's what I mean.
Maybe it's
The
worse
friction
when you
between-
add more.
Right. It gets worse.
That's mythical man month stuff. But yeah. Okay. So.
But that's an entirely different problem than
Yeah. So adding more people who are maybe undirectly, I don't know if you can put it into the self-organized umbrella, something like that. Anybody else?
Well, going back to the play market thing, it seems like it's kind of been a comparison between, let the market do its thing versus we're going to have this arbitrary play market where at any point you can get screwed, and so we're just not going to play. What about the idea of sort of democratically or representatively or whatever deciding on rules for a sort of semi-synthetic market, internally? Has anyone looked at that, or does that make any sense?
I always include it just for you on the top of every paper. There's always levels: the Republic, the Democratic, and then pure market based.
I know, but I'm saying that the criticisms that keep coming up are play market sucks. I'm saying, has anybody said, let's actually look at what happens when everybody decides on because
the biggest cooperatives are republics. So you can do it. It's just, can you do something better? That's all we're talking about. Can you self-organize and get even more efficient or be the same? That's all we're talking about. But what you're saying works. Like Mondragon, they're a software cooperative, a large one here, like more than 10,000 people, employees, and they work. They're a utility software company. So it works. All kinds of different things
they're
work.
not a republic.
They are too. Like they
are.
essentially just elect the CEO and do all this stuff, and
Similar to like an employee-owned company.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, what you're saying, Ian, works. It's just, how efficient can we get more optimal, whatever.
Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking, I don't know how much they're saying, let's actually look at, making this a market. If it's an explicit thing that they're saying, let's try to optimize how that works, or if it's just kind of
That's what so one of our talks was about that, right? The one with the selective intervention, and Otacon is a company, and they do that. And all it did was it went from play market they went to a matrix organization, and that was the quote unquote failure. But you might look at that as a, fine, or whatever.
I'm saying explicitly saying we are going to do, and it's, before it was kind of talked about in terms of letting internally participate in the market, the external market. Whereas I'm looking at it more as almost like an internal market for I don't know if you want to call it like access to the external market. Um, and it seems like that's always kind of how it has to be. I don't think it'll be a totally transparent pass-through kind of thing. So I don't. I haven't thought about this at all. So it just kind of popped in my head.
All right, let's talk offline about it because I want to
Cool.
get some of your stuff in because you have some unique views on some things. So, anybody else?
I kept on saying decentralized because I'm
Distributed. I don't know what you mean.
inherently less.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right. Thanks, guys. Hey, sorry it lasted 30 minutes longer. Take it easy.
One last thing is, you know,